Hi everybody, so today we're going to be learning how to embroider. This kit here comes with everything you should need to be able to make a little embroidery hoop. It has the hoop itself, a little drawing that you can use as a guide, and then we have 3 things of embroidery floss. We have the fabric and we have a needle, so let's get started. Alright, so I went ahead and pulled everything out so we have it. The first thing we're going to be using is this embroidery hoop, and we're going to go ahead and add the fabric onto it. So the way that we do that is we untwist here, get that loose, and that's going to make it where we can pop out this middle part, and then this is going to go onto here. You just kind of make it where it's relatively in the middle. It doesn't have to be perfect. And you'll take this other piece and put it on the back, and then we'll slide it through like that. And you want it to be like fully lined up, so you can kind of see on here, fully lined up, so it's not super far out, super far back, anything like that. And once we feel like it's pretty solid, I go ahead and kind of give a pull to the fabric around, and then we'll start tightening this up. Just tighten it as far as you can. It doesn't have to be where the wood is touching there, but just tighten it up a bit. And then I kind of check on the fabric, make sure it's still pulled well. There's that, and then I'll go ahead and pull it again. Alright, so next we're going to pick where we want this fabric to kind of go. You'll notice mine has a few holes in it. I did not get the recording, I guess it deleted, so we're just kind of restarting on it, but that's no biggie. So we're going to go ahead and pick where we want this to go. This has an adhesive on the back, so it's pretty easy. You just go ahead and get one of those corners off and then peel the fabric. It's going to be a little bit sticky, so then you can stick that right on there for you. So just peel back. Perfect. And then we'll have this adhesive, and then just stick it relatively where you want it to go on the fabric. This is how it should look whenever you've peeled it off. As you can see, mine in the corner is a little bit rolled over. That's no biggie at all, because this drawing here is just going to end up being washed off, so we'll just be left with our fabric or our embroidery floss from embroidering. So after that, this won't even be there. So it's just a rough guideline of what we're going to be doing, so it doesn't have to be perfect when you put it on. Alright, so you'll have 3 things of embroidery floss within your pack. I'm going to go ahead and start with this one, and I think this is the color I'd like to do for the top wings here. And so the easiest way, since we're only going to be using a little bit of this string, if you want to use this in the future, might as well just keep this on it. It'll keep it together and more organized for you. And so you can just find whatever string is loose on there and pull a little bit off. I personally would use probably about like 1.5 feet roughly. It's always nice to have a little bit more than you need, that way you don't have to go back and restart. And you can go ahead and cut that. The pack doesn't come with scissors, but you can use any scissors to cut. They don't even need to be too sharp because this thread is not super thick. And so now that we have that cut, we'll put your scissors to the side and go ahead and take the needle that comes with it. Like this guy here. I chose a bigger needle to use for this, so it's a little bit easier to thread. And if you're having difficulty, it's okay to go ahead and wet the end of your embroidery floss. But you'll just go ahead and take that and run it through the needle and then pull. I take mine down like 3 or 4 inches just to make sure it stays on there. If you feel more comfortable with it, you can go ahead and tie this off. I just prefer not to, because we end up it ends up making a little bit of a bigger hole whenever you pull through, so just for aesthetic reasons, but if you feel more comfortable with that, then that's okay too. Alright, so for this first run, you're going to go ahead and start from the back. This is the difficult part because you are kind of going blind into it, but you don't have to, you can kind of like push around and see where the fabric is rising, and then once you find the part that you want to go through, you can push that through, and then pull. Leave yourself a little bit in the back. It doesn't really matter how long, because we'll end up messing with it after this. But then we're going to go and just kind of follow the line that's on here and pull that through. Alright, so now we have our first little threading on there. We're going to turn it over, and since this is our first pass through, we're going to go ahead and tie this off. That way it doesn't pull all the way through, if that makes sense. So we're going to tie this into maybe 4 knots on there, just to make sure that it stays and can't be taken all the way through. Alright, so now we have the knot on there, as you can see. I'm going to go ahead and cut off the extra that's on the end here. Get kind of close to it. just to keep it clean in the back. It makes it more organized for when you're pulling through. And then now you can tighten that up and it's all the way on there. Perfect, yeah. All right, and then now we'll just get to embroidering. So we're gonna do another little pass on here, kind of find where you want your next one to be. I'll go ahead and do there. And personally, I like to make it just a straight solid line, and so you could either go right before and you're going to be able to see a little gap, or you can go a little bit into your previous stitch. I prefer that because then you can't see any gaps on there. And then we'll do the next one just to show again. I'm going to go right there. And then into there. All right, and I'm just going to keep doing that over and over. I'll finish off this whole wing, and then I'm going to do this other wing right here, and then I'll show you how to tie it off, and we'll start with our next color. Alright, so I have my first wing done. If you have a spot like me where you want to keep going with the same color, but you kind of have to skip this gap, you can just go ahead and skip it through the back whenever you go up, and then just continue on. Alright, so now I'm at the point that I want to change the string color that I'm using, so we're going to go ahead and tie this off in the back. You want to make sure you don't leave yourself with too little of string here, because we do need to tie knots in the back, so we'll go ahead and flip it over. And this is similar to how you begin with tying your little knot on there, but go ahead and take off the needle, and then pull that tight, and then we're just going to make multiple knots on here. So I'm going to just a simple little knot, and slide it far down. So you just kind of slowly tighten it, but make it far down. So you got one knot, and I'm just going to repeat that like 4 times like before. So I'll show it again on camera. So you make your first little knot, but keep the loop a little bit big, and you can just pull that down. That way it's all the way down. Sweet, and I'll do that 2 more times. All right, so that is knotted, and we're gonna go ahead and just cut the end off there. Perfect. Now that is all secure, and we got your first color done on there. You can go ahead and pick your next color. I'm gonna use blue for these bottom ones. Same thing as we did before, so just find where your end is on there. Oh, mine's over here. And pull out what you think you'll need. I'll pull about there. And then cut, and then we're going to thread this onto our needle. All right, and then we're going to push through. I'm going to go ahead and start right here. So we'll push through. Sometimes I'll go through and do a full pass, sometimes I'll just start like this. Either way, you can start it off knotting that way. And then we're going to do the 3 to 4 knots on here just to make sure it's secure. So there's 1, 2, and then I'll do 3 and 4 off camera. All right, so our knots are done. I'll go ahead and cut it pretty close to the knots. And then you can pull it through. And then just start threading through like you did before. So next one is a down. And then I'll go up, and then back through, and then just continue on. One thing to be mindful of is whenever you're doing this, just to make sure don't accidentally thread through the knot you just made, because it's going to be really hard to pull it through. If you do that and feel that you're pushing through it, just kind of pull back and re-find where you want to go. And we'll go ahead and finish off these 2 bottom wings, and then I'll come back, tie it off, and then do the middle part. I wanted to add an extra note for when you're tying these off. If you accidentally do a knot too high, like you can see on here, my original knot was way lower and then I did a knot too high. No worries, I'm just going to go ahead and make another knot and make it lower, and then whenever I cut it off, you can either cut above or below depending on how close it is. I'll probably just go ahead and cut in between right there, and it's like it never happened. Alright, so I went ahead and finished up the butterfly. You should also be finished with your design, and feel free to get creative with it. If you want to add little designs in empty spots, you want to add a little flower here, sparkles there, fill in the wings, whatever your design may be. Feel free to get creative. The design that it comes with is just like a simple template, and then you can do whatever you'd like with it. All right, so next step is we're gonna go ahead and wash off this adhesive that we have on here. So the best way to do that so you don't get this all wet is to undo the embroidery hoop, kind of loosen that up, and you can push it off. And I'm gonna go ahead and take this and put it underneath water. The water's just gonna go ahead and dissolve the adhesive that you have on there. And then once this dries, we'll come back and add it back on the embroidery hoop. All right, so my design is has been rinsed off with adhesive and pretty much dry. There's a few little wet spots, but that's no biggie. You can either air dry or you can dry with a blow dryer. Whenever you're rinsing off the adhesive, kind of give it a little rub so that adhesive comes off, but nothing too aggressive, so you're not messing up your original embroidery. But yeah, this is how we should look whenever the adhesive is all washed off. Like I said, mine's a little bit more still wet, but that's no biggie. So now I'm gonna add it back on the embroidery hoop. So we're gonna line it up where you'd like it to go. I think about right there. All right. And then once it's relatively where you'd like it to be, you can go ahead and tighten it a little bit on the edges. That's going to get rid of those wrinkles that are on there. And then we'll start tightening this up. I tighten it about like as far as you can go until it's like kind of tough, and then I pull on all the sides. Just kind of go around and pull, make sure we don't have any of those wrinkles on there. And that little bit that still needs to dry will dry eventually. All right, so kind of pulled those edges, got rid of just about all the wrinkles. And then we'll tighten again. And then pull a little bit again. All right, and there's that. And so the next part has an optional element to it, depending on if you want to use glue, don't want to use glue. But we're just gonna go ahead and tuck these edges. So you could do that either by cutting super, super close to this so that they're just barely sticking out, or you can leave a little bit of an edge and then you can fold it over and glue on the inside. That's all a personal preference. I'm gonna go ahead and leave a little bit of an edge and glue on the inside, just to make it more, it's a little bit more durable. So we'll cut on those edges, and I just cut a little bit and then fold it over and see if that's about what I like the length to be. And yep, that's perfect. So I'll just kind of continue that all the way around. All right, so I went ahead and cut this all the way around. Like I said, you could do it a little bit shorter if you don't want to glue it. That way it's just kind of hidden behind there. But now we have this. If you are going to glue it, a special note is that you don't want to get any glue on this side of it. If it does, it's going to end up staining through and potentially ruining what you just made. So be sure not to get any glue on this front side. But I'm going to go ahead and get a glue gun and just drop little dots of glue on here. As I do, I'll flip this over and get it stuck on there, just to make it more clean. All right, so you'll take your glue of choice. I like using hot glue. This one is a red hot glue. I'd prefer clear, but it doesn't really matter because it's going to be hidden anyways. But just do a little bit of hot glue, and then it does dry pretty quickly, so go ahead and flip that over pretty fast. And flip that guy over. And yeah, we're just going to continue that all the way around. I do like little dot, little dot, little dot, and then get it over and just keep going. If it's a little bit too warm, you can always use like the end of a pen or something like that to do the flipping over for you. All right, so you're all finished with your little miniature wall hanging for embroidery. Thank you guys for joining today, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. An easy way for hanging this is just to put a little nail on your wall and then hang it right there through the hole. Thank you guys so much, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye!